of studies have been made regarding motivation. What is it that motivates people to do the things they do, live the way they live, achieve the goals they achieve? And while there's certainly no single answer to so large and complicated a question, I believe the overriding force which motivates us as persons is a thing I call choice of environment. Environment being the immediate world by which we're surrounded. Some people make this choice consciously, but I'm certain a great majority of people make the choice unconsciously as a result of environmental conditioning. Well, it's here that we begin to see motivational forces at work. Motivation is closely linked to environment. Our normal reaction to environment is to act, think, and talk like the people by whom we're surrounded. Since only 5% achieve financial independence during their lifetimes, the odds are 95 to 5 that in any given case, a person is surrounded by those who are not thinking and working toward financial independence. Instead, he is surrounded by, and as a result, conforms to, a group which does not stress the importance of being financially independent. They have conformed to their environment. And I'm using finances as only one example. Other examples could be education, health, language, work, attitude, and so forth. These people can be said to be those who do not consciously choose their environment, but simply go along with the environment in which they find themselves. Now that would be fine if the statistics were reversed. If 95% of the people could be said to be successful, the odds would be excellent if we just went along with the crowd. In that event, selecting an environment might not be too important. But this is not the case, and never has been. If a person does not choose of his own volition the environment in which he wants to live and raise his children, the chances are about 95 to 5 that neither he nor his children will live in an environmental climate offering the best opportunities for success and the enjoyment of life. Let's take a hypothetical case and call him an average man in the free world, although there's no such thing as an average man.
Welcome to Synchronicity. It's me again this week. How did we have fun with guests? People, I can't tell. Sometimes it seems like the overwhelming response is, hey, we like the solo cast. And then sometimes people are like, I don't, just a guest for me, please, sir. So I'm trying to do both. You know, there's stuff going on. There's another baby on the way. I'm officially divorced. That's a thing. You know, life is crazy. I can finally be full disclosure for most of my personal life now, right? That's cool. Who was I talking about this with? Someone. And it's like, yeah, I'm abundantly transparent up until a point where it doesn't just affect me, but now everything is done. So today we're going to talk about a bunch of things. We're going to talk about functional fear and what fears influence or place in our life is and how we can use it functionally. It's not like something that's like, hey, let me just ruin your good time. Let me come take a shit in the middle of the floor and fuck your shit up. That's my job because I'm fear. That's not really that would be lame. Probably wouldn't incarnate in a place like that where it feels like that sometimes though. It's like, what are you doing, fear? Why are you taking a poop in the middle of the party? No one wants this. There is a story I'm going to tell it. Names will be rescinded. This is a true story I was telling Bill the other day. So in high school, I went to a party. Names will be redacted. Yes, won't say any names. Went to a party. There was like a kid. His parents were like the cool parents. They're like, yeah, you can throw parties. No problem. So we went to this kid's house and regular party, drinking, weed smoking. I think somebody had brought mushrooms at that point, and I think even someone maybe had ecstasy. And so one fellow, poor fellow, overindulged in all three of those substances and had quite an unfortunate experience where I was upstairs having sex with my girlfriend, and my other friend came running up and is screaming, 5-0, 5-0, po, po. And my girlfriend at the time didn't know what that meant. She's like, what is that? I'm like, that means the cops are coming. We need to leave. So we're going down into her car. I'm going to drive away. And I notice he has all this dirt on his hand. I'm like, well, yo, what's all this dirt? And he's like, it's not dirt. It's not dirt. It's not dirt. And so he begins to retell the story of the kid who overindulged, went into the bathroom, took off all his clothes, pooped, and gathered it in the middle of the floor and started emerging from the bathroom and flinging and throwing his poop at party goers, which is, probably not what you want to see at any situation ever in life. Even from a monkey, that's not good. The person at a party, not great. So, the parents are like summoned down there upstairs, and he retreats into the bathroom and starts grabbing his flaccid penis and saying, "I'm masturbating on your base. I'm masturbating on your base." And at this point, my friend tried to intervene, and that didn't go well, and it was obviously poop on him, and he was disturbed. My favorite part of this story is as, the police came and are escorting him away, and EMTs too, he pinned it on another kid right there in front of him. He's like, he gave me the drugs, so they tackled that kid. But he dragged his ass, his poop-laden ass, up the carpeted stairs. So there was a streak of poop that they then had to do. He didn't go back to that school. Wasn't my high school, but needless to say, it's hard to go back. I don't know how I got on that tangent, but that's basically what fear is like, right? That's how I did. If you don't want to be that fear, that was probably that guy's fear in some way. That's like, that's have those dreams where you're fucking naked. I don't even mean throwing poop at people. Whoa. So anyway, that's kind of what fear does. Now, why would we do that? Live through the experience or the kind of emotional or spiritual equivalent of that. Spiritual equivalent? Sure. Yeah, we'll go with that. First of all, I don't know if I 100% buy into the concept of this place is a school and you will learn lessons. I do think it's kind of like that. It's like an educational experience, but not like school in the traditional sense. You could look at it like, how a lot of people are maybe like, I don't think I have to go to college if it costs a lot of money. It seems like I can maybe learn skills or, make money or whatever we're doing to do things in the future. I think I can do that without that, but it is still an education. You're going to go through some process of educating your mind, your body, your spirit. How many times am I going to say spirit in this episode? Probably a lot, probably too many, but that is the educational process. So that's where fear comes in. And it looks on its surface like we don't like things we feared usually. It's like, I should never. Well, we don't really want to engage with it typically, but that paradoxically is usually its function. It's pointing to something. Look at it kind of like a symptom of when you have like a physical thing, like you get sick. It's usually there's always a relationship between what is physically happening to you, your emotional, psychological, not going to say spiritual, but I just said it, state. That's what it's pointing to. And, you can luckily, even with the aid of the internet now, kind of get to kind of the more ethereal or esoteric meanings of what physical things may represent. That's great. Fear also is like kind of the most impactful teacher for a lot of people, myself included, because you learn a lot in those moments. They're raw, they're real, and you have to kind of tackle the big ones in order to understand that usually not even close to as bad as what you would think the result would be. There can be very uncomfortable moments, depending on what you're doing. It's not like that's alleviated completely, but fears in general, they don't carry the punch and the sting as you imagine it. Usually we're a little hyperbolic in terms of imagining our fears sometimes. And, also on the other end, sometimes we're a little like underestimating how good things can be. So that's pretty cool too. But so fears are literally pointing us towards some aspect of ourselves that we choosing, we want to deal with. They don't come up if you don't want to deal with them. How do I know that? You're creating this. Nothing is forced onto you. So if it's coming up, you wanted to go through it on some level. It may be the worst thing in the world, but you wanted to go through that. Now, this is where I step in and say, hey, maybe just control that joystick a little bit, just a wee bit there. Maybe guide it and direct it towards a more harmonious situation. That's fine. But you're going to go through all of this stuff. All right. So I'm going to talk about, now that this chapter of my life is now over and we're folding a new one. And I'm not going to go too much into like the personal stuff, but I will talk about the very difficult decision to get divorced, leave my ex-wife and two small children behind for about a month and a half, where I basically just wasn't seeing them, which was very difficult, and ultimately ending that relationship, and what went into that, and what I learned from that about myself, about relationships, about my ex. And she's an amazing person, just to be clear. This had very little, and this is an important thing to remember if you find yourself in a situation where you have to make a difficult decision. Could be that, could be something else. Doesn't have to be a divorce, could be anything. If you find yourself in those situations, you need to ask yourself, like, what the fuck am I really wanting in life? Where is this going to lead? What's going on? So I will say, when you find yourself in a relationship where you just like fundamentally can't get along for whatever reason, and it's not a judgment on my ex, it's probably more of a judgment on me. I'm not an easy person. That's been beyond established all the time, at least. You find, like, what are you going to do? And when you throw kids into an equation here, to me, as someone who grew up and my parents got divorced at 5, I know firsthand and understand kind of what the impacts of divorce can and can potentially be, right? Didn't go through all of them. I would say I got it pretty easy. My dad ended it up. I repeated the clear pattern, and this is all going to kind of weave together. So regardless of whether you are going through or have gone through this specific situation, you should find some value in this here. I repeated the same pattern. My dad moved like 15 minutes away, got to see him a lot. And it kind of was a better situation because when my parents were together, they were fighting. That's exactly the cycle that I was repeating with my ex. It was like almost like abundantly clear. And so at that point I was like, fuck, what am I going to do? Like, this is not an easy decision for me to make in any way. Like, I don't know, like, how to handle this. And so I think what happens for a lot of people when they find themselves in those, they kind of just like push it away. And that's what I did. I was like, all right, let me just push this away. Let me not deal with this. It obviously doesn't make logistical sense. Who would want to go through something like that? And then at a certain point, this is usually how it happens for me, is I was like, all right, let me focus on some mystical, magical woo shit for a little bit. And as I did that, I got plunged more into the realm of kind of, we create our own situations, taking accountability and responsibility for whatever we find ourselves in, and then having the strength and courage and kind of faith that whatever you choose is the right decision and is going to work out, not just for you, but for everyone. Really going for the most harmonious, best possible outcome decision. That's incredibly important to keep in mind. So I did that. And as I did that, I started getting readings from a lot of people. And I started to realize that weird shit was happening. Like, I was basically being told almost explicitly by 3 independent readers, not through what I was saying. This is all like kind of like they're talking at you type shit. That got some female guide spirits telling me that it's time to like leave a relationship. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And this just became overwhelmingly clear that even these seemingly disparate like people out there in the world were reflecting some truth back to me. I wove that together and recognized like, this is what I need to do. Like, this is clearly like I've created what an elaborate story. No, you have to get readings from people to tell you that a relationship that's maybe not best for you, your partner and your kids maybe needs to dissolve. And you're probably going to need to be the person to let that go. And so I made a decision. And I will say, for anyone in this position, one thing that really helped me is, and I'm not traditionally a list maker, but I found myself in a moment in time where I was doing that. And I made a list of like ways that I could support my kids, my ex, and not just financially, not just, but like emotionally, spiritually. And I wrote 8 different things. I had the list somewhere. I could read it sometime. But basically, I had a list and I was like, all right, if I can do these, then I'm good. Like, then I'm still taking care of the responsibilities that I would have if I was physically present in this relationship with these children all the time. Again, not easy decisions. This is why I'm bringing it up now, because, that chapter is closed. I will say, like, from my ex's perspective, there's 0% chance she's listening to this when I'm recording it or anytime soon. She probably has the opposite take of this. And it's like, no, he's the monster. I hate him. What a piece of not totally. We obviously interact a lot. I live 15 minutes away. I see the kids a lot. We have a relationship regardless. It's not what it was, but there's still that. It ebbs and flows. Anyway, when I made the decision, I think a lot of you, if you were listening back then, knew that I went to LA for like a month, right? Which was like a big fucking separation. Like, I'm away from my kids. Like, I wasn't even FaceTiming him at that point, which was pretty excruciating. I gotta say, at points, not all the time, but at points, like, you miss your kids and you can tell they miss you. It's not an easy thing to do. All of these, by the way, biggest fears ever, right? This is just like the worst fear. I had already gone through another big fear with my second child when he was born, Gabe. He was in the hospital for like a month, not a month straight, but like went in for like 5 days at one point. He had 3 different medical problems and was like, I saw him on tubes and shit. I spoke about that in one of the early Imaginal Techniques episode. That was like, when you transcend that type of shit and you kind of like see the relationship and the change to how you react to fear, then you understand, like, oh, this is why we do fear. This is why we have this shit. It exists not as like some looming ghost, I'm going to ruin your life. It's like, oh, you give me the counterbalance between what it's like when things are amazing, so I can appreciate that. But B, you're showing me something. Like, why is this a fear? So usually what I've found with all of this stuff is you just want to learn or get the juice out of what it feels like. This is like perspective gathering. The more perspectives you can, truly gather, you're going to be able to make like the bird's eye decision, right? The eagle eye. Really see what's going on from up top, which is great. It's easier to make decisions when you have a nice panorama of everything that's going on around you in any situation. Doesn't mean you have to have that, but it makes it a lot easier. So it helps us gain more perspectives as we move through our fears, help other people move through their fears. It's just a natural process that we seem to, on some level, fundamentally enjoy. If we weren't fundamentally enjoying it, I can't imagine why we would be doing it. Now, this comes once you at least, access, if not stabilize, the realization that like you're doing this shit, right? It's not it's being done to you. You're doing it. Ask yourself, well, why would I put myself in situations where I have to deal with fear? You want the juice sometimes. You just want the juice of that particular educational moment that you're giving yourself. That also makes it easier to deal with fear when it comes up. And maybe it's a new thing that you haven't dealt with, or maybe it's just a completely new situation or scenario. That should, in some ways, if it's not immediately exciting, which sometimes it's not, rather than develop kind of an anxiety or resistance to it, be like, all right, here's an opportunity for me to move towards something that I kind of know I need to do. It's always going to be in the back of my consciousness. So why don't I move towards that and see what happens? Then you can just go, okay, I'm actually going to deal with it. It's not a big deal. It's no big deal. I just want to say, like, I went through a year and a half. I think it's been about a year and a half since this situation evolved and now has not even concluded, but at least the chapter of it is, changing, where it was like, I would say like, if I'm being honest here, 75% of the time was pretty great, and 25% of the time was like pretty fucking brutal. That seems like that's like a good split for something like this. It was intense. It's super intense to have to do something like that. And I say this today because I know a lot of people, like this podcast is predominantly me kind of sharing a perspective that I hope is liberating and helpful to people kind of living the lives, helping them live the lives they want to live, because it is up to you. It is up to your consciousness. There is no other factor ultimately that determines that. It's not 100% all the time I'm floating off in space dealing with fucking rainbows and unicorns. It's that a lot of the time. I like that. I like music and I like art and I like things like that. Those things tend to, they can bring you up to those spheres, but there is like muck, there's dirt, there's fucking crying. I'm a king crier, by the way. Just understand that your ability to purge in whatever way you need to, trauma, emotions, like it works. It's beautiful. It's a great thing to do. Don't shy away from it. When you feel it coming, lean into that shit. Don't cry all the time in every situation. No one likes that. But really don't be afraid of kind of letting it go and doing what you need to do. The polarity between what you view, how you view yourself, ultimately what you are, you're the best person ever. But you could have the capacity and probably at times kind of act like a piece of shit. That's okay. Doesn't mean you're actually a piece of shit. Also doesn't mean like you're just the purest, best. You're going through these motions. We live in a reality that's essentially kind of illusory and distorted, not in a bad way, but like we're seeing through a mirror that like we don't fully, like we're not getting the clearest of pictures of what's going on. We move towards that. I think we find ourselves at this point in time like kind of working through a lot of these additional senses, more I guess we would call paranormal, but just like using senses that we have that we take for granted and just don't kind of say that our senses. We're becoming more sensitive to that. I think scientifically and empirically we'll probably make a lot of strides in the coming years recognizing there's other senses that we have that aren't just our traditional five. Those are useful. Those are things that if you can kind of wrap your head around and get practice with. I love to look out there and see like how many people started doing readings, started recognizing their ability to intuitively and kind of empathically communicate with people using different modalities. That shit should excite you for the most part. I feel like if any of this stuff, feels like disturbing or like, like everyone's doing it now. Like, what's up with that? It's like, well, great. I mean, how many people 15 years ago would have been like, I'm doing readings? Like it was a very small percentage of people. Like there were people doing it every year. They'd move into the ranks, but like there was this explosion where like everyone knows some jackass like me is like, doing readings now. Yeah, I'm doing them. But if you find you have a natural aptitude for that, the proof will be in the pudding. If people come to you and they keep coming to you and that will be your real measure of how you're doing. Do it. It's great. I think giving people readings and helping people energetically or however you want to view it as in your narrative, that's like better than fucking what? I mean, like what's like a middle manager at an ad agency doing, fucking marketing plans? Cool. I'd rather get a reading from someone. I'd rather give a reading. I'd rather do something else. We need some value exchange here, right? Do we have to be sitting at an office doing that? I'm not even shitting on office stuff. Some people like that. That's great. There's no judgment on anything anyone wants to do. I happen to know that most people probably don't want to do that. This also doesn't mean that like if you want to be a superstar singer that you will instantly, because you imagine and feel yourself to be a superstar singer, superstar singer, what is that? That's kind of a cool song name. Anyway, it doesn't mean that you will instantly be vaulted and lifted to the position of that tomorrow or today or like in 2 weeks. Could be. We have that opportunity more than ever now, but try to allow that process to unfold in a cool and mysterious way. That's also part of the fun with all of this stuff we do. So yeah, I'm still thinking about superstar singer. That's cool. I like that name. Anyway, long story short, with fear and imagining, it's a tool. It's going to teach. Let's say you found the source of your fear. For me, it was being in a relationship where I felt like I was creating more dissonance and disharmony and feeling less like myself. That was a big fear. Went through it, had to go through it. Didn't have to. Learn that you don't have to. You can play through this stuff before it happens. You can deal with it. If you get a fear, right, you may have to go through, you may want to go through it physically and in this reality. You don't have to. I do that a lot with dreams. I don't know how many of you do that out there. Maybe you go through some of your worst fears and nightmares. Maybe something that really freaks you out you don't do here. You ever been murdered in your sleep? You ever murder someone in your sleep? I don't think I would do that here. It feels like it's wrong to do here. In dream world with infinite bodies and infinite people, it's all right. I mean, it's not the best. Don't go around murdering for no reason. But if you happen to do it when you wake up, you're like, all right, glad I did it there. That's better. So, yeah, fear, murder, love, lust, it's all great. I don't know where the fuck that came from. Finally got some different weed. I've been smoking. Here's a tip for weed smokers. Also, let me just generally answer this question now for people who ask about weed smoking. I get a peppering of these questions. I've dealt with it enough publicly, probably at this point. But weed is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. You don't need it. You don't have to do it. It's totally fine. It can be helpful for a lot of people. Just make sure you know what its function in your world is. Like, why? Why are you doing it? What's it doing for you? When are you doing it? When do you not need to do it? Can you not do it? Is that possible? You'll deal with that shit. I found for myself, every time I really push myself to the limit there, yeah, it's fine. You don't have to do it. It's no big deal. I like to do it because it's fun. That's me personally. Does that mean at sometimes I can overindulge in my life? Absolutely, like anything else. Do I give myself a super fucking hard time for that with weed? No, I'd rather find other things probably to do than weed. Weed's fine. It's getting legalized everywhere. It's not a big deal. I don't mean like it's not a big deal for you. It could be a huge deal. You could have a horrible. I see the TikTok people like, I stopped smoking weed because I realized I was just sitting on the couch and not being. I was like, fucking Jesus Christ. First of all, try some sativa. Second of all right, don't smoke weed. No problem. No judgment. Anyone who doesn't want to smoke weed. I know a lot of people don't like to smoke weed because it makes them immediately deal with their fears and their paranoia and their anxieties. And are they looking at me? And how am I being like this? And what am I going to do? Is that something at the door? Who's coming? Am I going to get murdered? What about that person? Are they laughing at me? Am I being bad? Is this real? Does this person even like me? Sure, deal with that shit. It's fucking great. That's why it keeps coming up. It doesn't come up because you're broken. What a dumb narrative. It comes up because, yeah, maybe you should fucking think about those things. It's ridiculous. You're fine. You are. Everyone probably actually kind of likes you, truthfully. If you're really concerned with those types of questions, you might be going out of your way to be overly nice or help overly accommodating. People actually like that, believe it or not. You don't want to be fawning and like self-sacrificing to the point where people are like, what's the matter with this person? Why are they trying to help me so much? But like for the most part, you're probably well-liked, a well-liked individual. And if someone doesn't like you and you could figure out the reason, maybe be like, oh yeah, it's valid. I can understand why my ex doesn't like me. I can understand why several people don't like me. Do I agree with their opinions? Probably not. But if I was in their situation, I might feel exactly opposite. But I understand it. So just weed, tying this all together, weed can also compel you to deal with fears. I find that too. You know what's on the other side of when you deal with that? Oh yeah, no big deal. Now I feel pretty awesome. Maybe I'm gonna make some music. Maybe I'm gonna do this. Maybe I'm gonna have sex. Maybe I'm gonna, whatever it is, eat some food. That's fun. That's nice. You've now moved past the fear state. These are just like spheres of consciousness we move through. I found, I don't know at what age it was when fear, when I smoked, just if it comes up, I deal with it in the moment. It's pretty great. Don't push it away. It'll come snapping back to you. It's like anything in life. Anything you push away actively because you don't want to deal with it, you will fucking deal with it. It's literally how everything works all of the time. But if you're like, oh, here's this thing, not a big deal. I'll deal with it right now. And the way I'm going to deal with it is, let me really like get to the bottom. Now you have to believe this. It's again, this is very much like You don't have money in the bank. You say you're abundantly wealthy. You see the money not being in your bank. That's lying to yourself. That doesn't work. But if you say, hey, I'm doing this thing where I'm bending reality because I know that I'm infinitely wealthy, and every day I'm going to see more and more proof of that no matter what, even if things seem like they're not going my way, they certainly are. That's going to work. You're massaging the aspect of your being that's going to kind of summon forth this stuff, and it's going to deliver it to you. You don't want to fight this stuff. Don't fight fear. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. That's not going to work. That's like saying, I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. Say, I'm just dealing with my fears in a way that is helpful for me. That's all. Episode. Yeah. Patreon going on. Crypto going on. Guys, here's the deal. I don't know what to say anymore. You've watched me yak about Bitcoin now for about, a year at least, probably more. It's not over. You can get Bitcoin. You can get Ethereum's probably a really good bet over the next few months. The Discord, go ask these questions to the lovely community. I found so many amazing things. This year, this is also something I was talking about with a friend. Someone was saying that they couldn't believe the traditional finance people, when they're coming into crypto, they couldn't believe that like all of these groups, like the Crypto Sync, and which is a very small one, huge groups of people get together and share tips and strategies and information. And so the Wall Street, I don't want to say Wall Street, but like the traditional finance people were coming in like, yeah, we love this. But when's the rug, bro? When do we pull it? When do we take all their money? And they're like, no. What? What are you talking about? That's not what we're doing. We're literally, there's enough, and this is a huge swing and kind of like a technological revolution type of situation. And so like there's enough for everyone. And they're like, yeah, we love that. But like also, when's do we take their money? And it's really not that. I've seen this year more than any other, the collective power of the community lead to more, I don't know what to say. It is money. It's if you're measuring it in dollars, but a better understanding of lack and abundance than before. And that's ultimately what is underpinning all of this stuff. You may go through some very big lessons. And I think like that's a good thing where the money stuff still seems to be pretty important. Those stimmy checks come yet? Where are those stimmy checks at? Joey B. Are they listening to me and be like, hey, he talks shit about Joe Biden one too many times. Slow it down. I don't know. I don't get them anyway. My ex gets them. It's probably already there. But anyway, money, people have fear with money big time. So deal with your money fears. See what happens on the other side. Deal with every fear. Functional fear. That's what it's there for. You can get access to the aforementioned Discord server, Crypto Sync, where we talk about cryptocurrency and lots of other stuff, by joining the Patreon, patreon.com/synchronicity. It's a fun place. It's cool. We like it. There are also other things on the Patreon. You can get bonus episodes when I feel like releasing them. In all honesty, they come out. They're there sometimes they're not. There are smoke sessions that happen randomly if you pop in. Basically, it's usually like 5 of us smoking weed because I drop them like totally randomly. So that's pretty disorganized too. Music, though, I will say, lots of bonus stuff coming up. Just did an ambient scent with Bill. We'll drop that on there. That will be live streamed on March 24th. I will have the details before that episode comes out. If somewhere, Instagram, Twitter, one of the places where I am. Music is, I got a fucking real studio now. What do you think? This is where the rubber hits the road. I found when I do well with crypto, I just keep buying music gear. It's so fun. Turning internet magic beans into real life synthesizers and mixers and pedals and drum machines. I love it. Guitars. So fun. Anyway, that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. Rate the podcast. I don't know what people do. Should I start another podcast? Everyone's starting another podcast. It's like the cool thing to do. Should I do that? Just make up another podcast and do different shit on there? I don't know. Let me know if that's something you'd want to see. Noah at Sync Podcast. You can also ask me questions. Fun times. Tarot readings are open. Limited spots. Energy readings, limited spots. Usually earlier in the week. That's there on the website, syncpodcast.com. That's it. Nailed it. Lots of love. Until next week, happy imagining.